You know, a good reminder from Genesis chapter 1, verse 3 is God always pierces the darkness, always. And the darkness doesn't last.
And the high priest, the great high priest who is Jesus Christ, he puts his hands on your life and you take your hands off and you say, my life is surrendered for your purposes.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of the Downline Podcast. Today is going to be a lot of fun. My name is Jamie Trussell, privilege of pastoring in the Austin area at Redeemer Dripping Springs and to serve a ministry near and dear to my heart, Downline Ministries, where we hope this podcast helps Christ followers faithfully walk with Jesus while pouring our lives into others. Today is going to be a little outside of our normal box. I've got a lifelong childhood friend with us who loves the Lord. That has not always been the case. Loves the Lord and has a really cool story about being an entrepreneur and doing that with kingdom impact and impacting lives, individual lives for Jesus. So Whitley Dykes, Auburn High School, class of 2001. Help our readers get a little bit familiar with you and your family. And by readers, of course, I mean listeners. Familiar with you and your family.
We've got to start over now because you said the wrong thing.
Sorry, I do it all the time.
Goodness, where do I start? I mean, I can give you just the most basic rundown. After getting back in school, after dropping out early on,
you had some encouragement by school administration to drop out.
Yeah, you know, God's got his timing for everything, and I definitely was not in the throes of pursuing God at this time of my life, and so, but he was faithful and called me home. But when I got back in school at UAB and studied international studies and Chinese, and during this time, I had this really profound encounter with God that really just set my life on a different trajectory. And I ended up going to study in China. And when I was over in China, I felt called to go back to do missions or full-time ministry. I think at the time, being called to full-time ministry, my scope was a little bit limited. I had this kind of this separation between like sacred and secular, like you have to be a minister, and like we are all ministers. And so I was like, I guess I got to be a missionary or go to seminary. And so I felt the Lord lead me to go back to China. And it turned into 7 more years. So I spent about 8 years in China.
Tell everybody where, I mean, you were up kind of tucked up by the North Korean border, right?
Yeah. We were in a city called Changchun, which is in the Northeast. I mean, growing up in Alabama, you're not used to that kind of cold, but it would get down to like negative 40, negative 30, negative 20 during the winter. It snowed half a year. I remember my first year there, it snowed May 1st. I'm like, this ain't right. But I really started appreciating long johns, long underwear and down jackets. Anyway, and it's good. It's good. You can edit this part out if you want to. I'm kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, but hold on. Being there 7 years, 8 years, what is it like going from honestly kind of a wilder period of your life to moving overseas to East Asia and being fully submersed in Chinese culture?
I think that I was blessed to do some travel after I got back in school. Some childhood friends of mine as well who were studying there opened the door for me to go to places like Lebanon. And we had some cool adventures over there. Went over there about 3 times, got to go to different countries before that. And then after I went to China, I was able to travel a lot more. But I think that kind of put me I realized the travel bug had hit me and maybe I was designed for this kind of thing. So a lot of people will say, oh man, it takes a special person to go live in that culture. And it's like, no. I think really God prepares personality wise and interest wise, those kinds of people that he wants to call abroad. And so maybe it's not always the case, but in my particular case, it's true. So I really loved getting immersed into that culture, the food, the people. I'm a very relational person. So, when I was doing the mission work, I mean, it's right up my alley. I don't like teaching English. You imagine me as an educator?
No, I can't actually imagine you educated, much less being an educator.
That's fair too. And so I think vocation wise, it was something that I really was not fulfilled doing, but the doors that it opened relationally and the fact that I could speak boldly about my faith. Now, we weren't supposed to, obviously, but the doors that had opened for me over there on a relational level to just be impactful and just love on some young people, especially college students, was huge. So vocationally, not a big fan of what I got to do, but the heart behind why I was there really was I felt fulfillment in that sense.
But speaking vocationally, I mean, you mentioned food a second. We'll get there in a minute. One of the things that God did in taking you to China was drastically reshape the course of your life, both professionally and personally. You meet your wife, right, who's a Chinese national. Yep. And then your love for the food, and I mean, let's give her credit, her ability to make it, sort of launched you into something I'm guessing you never really expected.
Yeah, for sure. So we got married like my second year in China. Didn't go over there looking to get married, and we got married, and this whole process of us trying to figure out when to go back to the United States and where we would land. And I think neither one of us had any kind of idea that we would get in the food business. I can tell you this, though. Both of us made the decision to come back because we felt like we could be more impactful for the kingdom here than we were over there.
Talk more about that.
We got some great things. I mean, we got, the doors that got to be opened while we were in China, and the people we got to spend time with, and the things that we started, that was great. But I think vocationally felt not out of my comfort zone. I mean, I got used to it, and you get comfortable and you know what you're doing, but I felt like there was something more, and I didn't know what that more meant. And I felt like I could use my gifts and my talents and skill set better in the United States. And so we moved back essentially to the United States as mission-driven people, thinking we were going to end up maybe in a bigger city and just landing in Auburn temporarily because this is where home is and getting settled in. And then within a month, I ended up getting a job at the university with international students and kind of going from there. And I know that we're going off the topic and we're not staying, answer. I probably hadn't even answered the first question where I tell you about my family, but got 2 kids too in the process.
That you love and cherish.
Yes. Love and cherish.
Moved back to Auburn, which is home. We're both Auburn high school grads and home for both of us. Obviously, we don't have time to go back into all the ways I've owned you athletically through the years. That's another podcast for another day. But what's it been like? So just so our listeners understand, some of the most fun and I think hilarious times of my life have been with you. You've always kind of lived on the edge a little bit personality wise, but you're so gifted with people and humor. And I think God used that in developing your first company, right? And even how you titled it and even what took off in Auburn. And one thing, as we talk through discipleship, is so many of our men and women helping younger men and women discern and figure out where your passion lies and how God can take something he's put on your heart. It does not have to be vocational ministry in the sense that you get paid for it. That really dream and visualize how God can take things that you already desire or things you're excited about, and kind of this blank slate of entrepreneurial skills and use it for the kingdom. So talk a little bit about how the food truck got started, what you named it, and what your vision was for it.
I would say our vision, because nothing that I do is independent of my wife, who is my business partner in this. And she is a driver. She is a doer. And this girl just gets stuff accomplished. There's not one person I respect on this planet more than I do my wife. She she's like my hero. The amount that she can do and accomplish and the level of wisdom she has for how old she is and what she's been through is incredible. So none of this would have been possible without her. But, moving back from China here, she just got a normal job. She dropped out of college so that we could get married. And, but everything that she did in China, she excelled at. I'm talking about everything she did, turned to gold. Even when she worked at Starbucks, she was like the fastest promoted in Chinese history, it seemed. And she got to meet Howard Schultz and host this event for her and for him. And so when we came back here, she got a normal kind of everyday job, which she looks back and says, like, even though I really did not like my job, I see how God used it to prepare me for where I'm at today. Yeah. And so my job, I got to work with international students, and 90% of them were Chinese. And so along the way of us being back over a year and a half, seeing what God's doing relationally, being able to disciple and mentor some young people, and then having this career thing that we're like, man, is this really where we belong? Is in Auburn, there's an opportunity arising back in China with the same company. And I feel like on a professional level, it's more in tune with my abilities, and I feel like I get paid more and respected more. So over this course of time, I'm like reducing my life down to to a career and being like, wait, why did God bring us back here in the first place? What is he doing here right now with these young people that I'm spending time with? I'm not going back. The door might be open, but I think God is so relational that, people say God opens one door and closes one door, opens. Well, maybe that's the case. But in this situation, it was like he was so relational and intimate with us in the way that we were trying to make this decision that, he might have opened the door, but he walked hand in hand with me over to that door and closed it together and said, I've got something better for you. And we started talking about starting our own business and doing something that we were passionate about and really didn't have a ton of experience doing. And we didn't have a lot of capital at the time. We didn't have any money, hardly. And so we talked about a food truck, a dumpling food truck. So something very themed, something that could feed the Chinese students who were here so they didn't have to go across town with no car to get some Chinese food. We could bring it to them, or we could take it to the apartment complexes in which they lived. And even though and then we could also feed the local community as well and do something baos and dumplings where people weren't necessarily familiar with those things and have a specialty thing. So we said, okay, let's keep it simple. We can change the menu every day. Our heart is to make an impact. So yes, our goal number one is going to be impactful for these people that are around us and the Chinese students and the locals. But number two is how do we tie it into a mission of something that we're passionate about? So from the beginning, we said we're going to donate a portion of our profits to help kids in extremely poor areas of the world, get out of that poverty. And so, and be mentored and discipled and all those kinds of things from a gospel-centered perspective.
I would say, outsider looking in, probably exceeded all expectations.
Yes. I was still working. My wife is the one this was her passion project. It wasn't even mine, because I have such a ministry on a professional level with these students, and some of them are coming from countries like Saudi Arabia and some closed countries and stuff. And I'm like, I've got access to these wonderful students. If I step away from this and into this part of a career, then what am I stepping away from? And am I closing those doors? And am I going to be able to be as relational and as intentional as I am here? And stepping away, the whole process, the way that God led me to step away when we had already started opening and everything, and said the time is coming for me to stop riding the fence. Either I'm all in or I'm not. And then the way he communicated with me and encouraged me, and I left that job. And then, yes, it exceeded all expectations for me on a relational level, because I've been able to do way more with this than ever imaginable in that other setting. And it's not just international students. It's people from all walks of life, people in high positions to people in, low positions of the world, and people from different religious backgrounds, political backgrounds, sexuality backgrounds, all these kinds of things. It allows me a point of contact with people to just love on them and be light if I'm being the light. but honestly, so Don't Like a Truck leads to a storefront, which you call the Irritable Bao, which again, there comes your potty humor. You've actually profited off potty humor. In fact, if you could disciple my 5-year-old, I'm sitting on a gold mine right now, if potty humor pays. Yeah, it does. And, people, you gotta, it's a craft, you gotta train yourself up, and you gotta make sure that it all started on the 6th grade in Prattville when I lived there, and I learned the power of your mama jokes. And me and my buddy Roman used to just go back and forth with your mama jokes. Yeah. And then I just honed my craft when it came to poop humor. And I remember I was like, man, I had these 2 ideas in mind, and I was like, neither one of these are sticking. And then it's like, wow, I had this really serendipitous conversation with a friend who had IBS, and she was telling me about her, not in detail, but about her issues and how she had been doing. And in that moment, I literally knew the name of it. I saw the logo and the cartoonish logo in my head. I knew that from that moment, the long lines that we had been experiencing and the good works that are associated with it is called the Bao movement. And so all these things kind of came together. And so it does its job. It's repelled some people for sure. And actually, with us opening up this new location in Seaside, Florida, they wanted the business, but didn't want the name because of the, things associated with it. And we found that this is actually a good thing. So it allowed us to create another brand with its own hidden humor. And so it does its job. People will walk by, it's a dad joke. They'll take a picture of it. They might not come and eat, but they'll laugh about it and they'll share it with their friends. And so it's a memorable name.
Yeah, but it also draws people in. And I've been a couple times, I love the VIP treatment because I get free food and skip the line. But
you came to the original storefront. I mean, you came and sat in that little hole in the wall that was just 3 by 3 feet.
People waiting for their food and basically walking past all of them as they stared me down with hatred in their heart. But
that's when you introduced me to your minivan and told me it was a game changer, and I have one now, and I'm like, Jamie was right.
The minivan is a game changer. My wife, she gave it 3 good years and then informed me that her season was over. And so
for yourself?
We've graduated from the minivan, but dude, I chose to drive the Mini. I loved it.
It's a warm hug.
Hey, here's one thing that I love about visiting your restaurant is, and this is where I think you tie in how God's gifted you with entrepreneurial skill, is you're at the front door and people walk in, and I think the entire Auburn community feels like you know them. And it's really the power when we learn people's names or even simple facts about them. There's something communicated that God hasn't forgotten you. People know you. And that's a big part of why you do what you do, even from the humorous name to it's all about drawing people in and giving them a sense of belonging. Now, your heart obviously is that they take steps towards knowing the resurrected Christ.
I'm looking at something on my phone because I'm thinking, you got me thinking of a story about the power of that. But go ahead. Yeah.
No. Tell the story.
No, I mean, it's one of many stories, but I mean, in particular, at the original storefront, there was, and I'll tell him to watch this later. We were texting. I probably see him like once a year if I'm lucky at this point, because he's moved on from Auburn. But I remember for some reason, just if I can walk in sensitivity to the Holy Spirit moment by moment and knowing that he's wanting to break through into the lives of the people around me, if I can live in tune with that and realize that I can be a vessel for that and that he loves these people just as much as he loves me, then I can position myself to be an impactful person and be used. I think that the difficulty is with the amount of people that would come in, it can end up being transactional, and I can actually train myself to be transactional and on the surface still give good customer service, but not from a posture of imparting something beautiful to them. If I posture myself to impart, then I am setting myself to do as Jesus did, which is he came to serve and not be served. And I think that's when we hear the voice of God more clearly. We see what he's doing. We know what he's doing, and I can partner with him better. And so, it's not like that every day for me. It's not. I mean, I will go in there and I'll sit in my truck and I'll pray. I'm like, God, bring people who need to be loved on today. And then that can be the posture of my heart. And then I'll get caught up doing something else and I'll just be transactional. And so that's not where I want to operate from, not just for the ministry standpoint, but from my own standpoint and like being connected with God. Anyway, there's this guy who was in line one time and I felt like God was saying, like, he was highlighted this one kid. And so when he came up to the front, I made sure I asked his name because I was still taking orders at the time in this little storefront, and I was, doing the bow. Now I get to just be up front all the time and not, they basically kicked me out of the kitchen and the operations because I just ruined everything. And so my wife's like, I've basically fired you 4 times over from the kitchen. Yeah. But
better than her firing you from, the family.
Yeah. Thank God. Yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, we've had times in our lives where it's like, man, do I need to step away from this business so that we can make sure that we make it as a couple? Because that's the ultimate thing. Yeah. But I think that with our personalities and our giftings, it all comes together. But anyway, this one kid, his name's Jarrett. I asked his name, and I made it a point to remember his name, Jarrett McClin. And I remember the next time he came in, I called him by name. And he told me how impactful that was for him, to the point where I can't remember how much time down the line it was, but we built a type of relationship where I became a trusted person in his life. And when his grandma died, he came over to my house and we got on our knees and we just prayed together. Right. And he was a believer, which was great. But that one touch point of being able to intentionally be in partner with the Holy Spirit and love that person and get to know their name, open the door for ministry down the road. And now we have a friendship that's going to, last forever. And I might not see him once a year, once every 2 years or so, but that opened that door. And so that's one of many stories, but that was one of the foundational ones for me, that really encouraged me, especially when he came over to my house and we were able to do that praying and stuff together. Yeah.
Well, what's so great about that is, right? Because there are lots of young men and women kind of figuring out, what do I do with my 20s? What do I do with my 30s? How to invest my talents? And part of discipling someone is helping people discover that. But there's almost this idea in the marketplace or business world, you almost have to over spiritualize everything to make it meaningful instead of discovering the rhythms that are already implicitly meaningful, which seems like a small thing. I heard a guy teach me, I don't know, 25 years ago, maybe. I heard a guy say the most important word in the English language is somebody's name. And in a culture right now that's so pervasively lonely, as something as small as that, I remember my first year at Dallas Seminary, so this was like 2006. I'm in a class, and not a class I particularly enjoyed, and I'm sitting on the front row, and there is a lady, a Chinese lady sitting next to me, and her name was Jabai. And we're beginning a class just started, and she's just weeping next to me. And I'm sitting there going, are you kidding me? It's like, I'm in a class being trained how to be a pastor, and this lady's crying, and I just want to move because I don't know how to deal with this. Whole class sees her crying, right? And I'm the one next to her. What's this jerk going to do? Yeah. And so I got to like barely just like tap, tap, tap on her shoulder. And the professor opens class and her hand goes up, and I'm sitting there thinking, what on earth is about to come out of her mouth? And she just moved stateside. She's from China, and she's weeping. And through her tears, she tells the professor, when I walked into class this morning, you greeted me by my name. And it reminded me that God has not forgotten about me. And that's always stuck with me of some of the biggest impacts we make in discipling people, in evangelistic opportunity, whatever it is. Things that seem inconsequential really move the needle for some people, because if, like you mentioned, if we're in tune with the Spirit, God knows what someone needs. And there's an opportunity every day in this as we are going lifestyle of being part of someone's discipleship process from unbelief to maturity. And that's something I'm guessing you get to see, in abundance in your type of work, because Auburn's grown a ton since we grew up there, right? Probably almost doubled in size. But you see a huge cross section of the community every single day.
Yeah, I do. But I see breakups happen. I see marriages happen. I see people grow in their faith with people. Auburn is a very reached area if you're thinking gospel wise. But then, I remember when I went over to China for recruiting for that company, after a year, I remember, even though my job was to get people to choose Auburn, the heart behind that was, I know if I get them to Auburn, they will hear the gospel. There's no doubt in my mind. Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind, not because there's a church on every corner, but because people take their faith seriously. And there's a culture of discipleship that happens in this. It goes back to when we were in school here, and the people that we had, Kenan, and Benoit, and these people who they were serious about being active in our lives and helping us grow into the type of people. Now, granted, at the time, I hung out because it was fun, and I didn't, and I'm glad I still got those relationships with them. But people who are much better at living their lives than I was at that time and much more serious about it, they exist in abundance here. And so things happen around me all the time that I am just oblivious to. And I just know what happens kind of in the world of the people who I get to talk with on a regular basis for the most part. And I'm more of a touch point person. I'm more of a person where, there's this girl who came in, her name is Hannah, and there's a bazillion Hannah, so it doesn't matter which Hannah this is. But she was really going through some dark times. And she said, I'm not a person of faith, but I know you are. Can you pray for me?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So these little things, and then you get to become a safe place just through loving on people and showing them that they matter and that they're valuable to God. And I'm not out here standing on any kind of soapbox. I'm just sharing my life experience when they actually ask me about it. When I get a chance to testify to God's goodness, I'm going to make sure that I do that. But I'm not out here trying to convert people. I'm out here trying to love on people. And that opens a door for people to come and approach me on a relational level and say, you're a safe place for me. I know we might not see the world the same way, but I respect where you're at, and that faith in Jesus is the foundation of why you are where you are. And can you either help me out, or can you pray for me, or can you encourage me, or can you just listen to me? Yeah.
So, I mean, you wouldn't say this. I'll say this. You've had some opportunities to honestly probably acquire a pretty substantial amount of wealth if you had from day one just taken this deal and franchise. I mean, people, you've turned down Food Network interviews. There's lots of stuff you've turned down. What has driven you? I know you're just now kind of opening up that second location down in Seaside, which was even quite a process for you to even want to do that. What has been your vision for slow growth and not just maximizing profit with something that is a very successful business?
I think the foundation is never being profit driven for us, and having that giving back kind of worked into it. Me and my wife we say we want to make more so we can give more. We want to, reverse it. We talked about it early on. Well, what if we could give away 90 and live off of 10? Maybe we can one day, but I'm also not going to put my kids in the poorhouse to do that. I'm going to take care of my family.
Sure.
So being married to the right person really matters. And having somebody who can balance you out when you're stepping out of line, or our ambitions that haven't always matched. I mean, there was a time a few years ago, probably 20. I mean, we got approached by multiple things. And I remember thinking like, man, we're at the height of and it just kept going up and up and up business wise. Right. And we're like, man, we're at this, like, let's ride the wave is what I would say. There's momentum here. Why don't we start branching out and trying to figure this thing out? And I'm telling you, God has never left us to our own, that wasn't a selfish thing. It was an ambition thing. It's a healthy thing that I'm like, we could grow this thing. Yeah. And the way that God had been so good about communicating with her and through me through different seasons was paramount, has been paramount to the decisions that we make. Two examples real quick. When we moved from that old space into the new space, downtown Auburn, which was a gift, people told me, people are not going to be happy. You're only open Wednesday to Saturday, basically 9 a.m. or 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. Well, we ended up reducing it to 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And now we started opening more because of we got help and can actually do it, and we're not the ones doing it. But I remember people saying that downtown and Auburn people are going to reject it. You're only open 4 days a week. It's not going to work. You need to really consider opening more. And I remember just praying about it and hearing so clearly God say, do not succumb to the pressure to do business the way other people do business. Wow. Value what I value and you will prosper. And he didn't just mean material prosperity. He meant my relationship with my daughter and my wife is going to prosper, my impact in the community. Just like taking a Sabbath, I have to trust that if I have this day off, that God is going to be more impactful and use what I've done throughout the week or whatever when I'm not working. So I have to So I don't know if that makes any sense, but stepping back, like I have to trust that He's going to do more with when I do less if I'm in a posture of trusting. Sorry, I got jumbled with my words there. Same thing with like my health is going to prosper. If I'm working myself into the grave, what good am I to anybody? So that was my approach is, okay, all right, we're going to do exactly like we're doing. And we're going to make sure we stay connected to God. And I tell you what, we were busier than I could have ever imagined with that framework going in. The second thing is, my wife really hears from the Lord a lot in dreams, a ton in dreams, and very clear, very, very clear. Well, there's this time where we're like growth. Well, and I'm like, we got to ride the wave. We got to do this. We got to do this. And she had a dream where in the middle of this, I'm in that dream saying, we got to go. We got to do this. We got to, now's the time. And Jesus shows up with pots and pans in his hands and plays ping pong with my wife. All right, look, very Chinese, right? Speaking to her in her culture. Okay. And he says, basically slow down, enjoy me, enjoy the process. Right. And that was it, was like, now is not the time for us to be focused on the growth. Focus on me. Just focus on me. Don't be in a hurry. Enjoy me. And I'm going to walk with you through this thing. And that was a few years ago. And so we backed out of the things that we were looking at. Now's the time that we are opening something. And he's walked with us as equally as intimate through this decision as he has previous decisions.
Thanks for sharing that. I told you 30 minutes. I'm 1 minute over. I want to end with this though.
Dang, bro.
I know. I mean, you and me are just about to crest 42 years old. And I still kind of see myself as a young guy. Apparently I'm not. My kids certainly tell me I'm not.
You look all right.
Yeah, I do.
Young at heart.
Good, right?
Yeah, I think I just had blue booger out of my nose.
Okay, thanks for that.
Hey, call it out so people won't, they're as comfortable with it as you are.
there are very few people as comfortable with things that you are. But hey, give a word of, so this is going to be niche, but young men, young women, maybe they're college, maybe they're young adults, they're thinking career, what's God got for me? If you are meeting with a young person and they're thinking about how do I maximize my life and my gifts, I'm not called to vocational ministry. How do I maximize my life and my gifts for the sake of the kingdom? What are your 2-3 things that you counsel people to pursue that?
I think number one is things that I haven't always done well, which is, maintain intimacy with God through everything. Like that has to be your core foundation. People can, in good intention, seek to minister to people because they feel this drive to do that. But ministry is first and foremost unto God. It's about you getting in the secret place. It's about you. There's power in that. Whenever you do that, whenever that is God, my posture and my goal is to be connected with you, even if that means I'm here all day and not out there doing the work, because I got to trust once again that once I go out there, the impact is going to be so much more, exponential than if I try to go out there and do it in my own power. Because, what's the point? The mission, apart from being connected to the one who is actually sending you on that mission, is you're working against yourself. So, and then also you really protect yourself from burnout. I got burned out my first year in China because I was doing it from a perspective of God deserves this. He deserves the glory. He did this for me, so I'm going to do it for him. And it wasn't until I had this really deep relational love encounter with God that he took me on a journey of intimacy with him that has sustained me for years. When my first year doing that, young in the faith, I was gung-ho, but burned out quickly. So being connected to God. And maybe another thing would be just remembering why you exist. You might not know the specific reason for why you exist when it comes to vocation, but just remembering that you are an image bearer. And that what that means is that you are a representative of God on earth for his will to be done. It's not just about getting people to heaven. It's about being an agent where heaven can come to earth through you. I believe the kingdom of God is one of progress. Where there is a king, there is a manifestation of that kingdom. And when you look in the scriptures, the kingdom of God starts small and it doesn't stop advancing, right? And I don't think the kingdom of God takes a day off. So you actually saying, I'm going to participate in this. I know that there's going to be manifestations of God's faithfulness here. My wife walked in with a bubble tea as I'm doing that. I can expect God to answer my prayers. I can expect God to bring the right resources and people if I'm partnered with him on his mission and believing that the world's not going to hell in a handbasket necessarily, and I've got something that I can do about it in partnership with him. Sorry.
Okay. Hey, in closing, thanks for your time, by the way. I mean, for all the things I've done for you in your life, you certainly owed me, but
I did. Hopefully I don't ruin your ministry with this.
Well, there's 50-50 chance. I've built up enough reputation that I think I can overcome you. Hey,
I told you people do part 2 with me because we start talking, not because I'm good at this, because I'm not. It's because I talk so much that we don't ever finish on time.
Well, listen. This was all about storytelling and people's hearts being warmed and captivated by just what God can do. I love the teaching of the feeding of the 5,000, not only because it displays Jesus' divine power and his compassion and provision, but it shows when we bring our little bit of fish and bread and submit it to God and say, take it, break it, and multiply it. He really does do that. But we got a lot of folks, I'm sure, they will be traveling to 30A this summer, or they are headed to the beach or Destin or Seaside or wherever. Tell them where they can find you if they want some great food and maybe even meet you in person.
I'll be down there for sure a lot. I'll be down there. Well, the name of the restaurant is going to be called Drome, Drome. It's not called the Irritable Bao. And has a special meaning because it's a place of movement where people come and go, where people gather for activity. But it also comes from Irritable Bao syndrome. I took out the sin like Jesus and just left Drome. And so
you're so deeply theological.
It's still a covert thing.
Yeah.
But it feels like it feels more posh. It's like, I'm going to Drome. It sounds Las Vegas.
Yeah, you're cutting edge. Yeah, you're cutting edge.
So anyway, we're located in Seaside. If you're standing on 30A, if you're familiar with it, if you're standing on 30A and your back is to Seaside Square and the food trucks, I need to get some deodorant, then you're looking at Bud and Alley's, which is the longest running restaurant, I think, in Seaside. And then there's Shrimp Shack. And then we're going to be right next to that, right next to a major beach entrance. And so the location is crazy. God is good. and I'm going to go get some perspiration.
Well, I look forward to seeing you down there this summer.
I love you, man. Thanks for having me on.
See you, bud.
Do good.
I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode of the Downline Podcast. Please subscribe and go down and rate us and give us 5 stars. Help us get this content out to as many people as possible as we hope to continue to equip men and women to join the Great Commission as we make disciples for a lifestyle as a lifetime.